Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the oscillator section. Now this is an area where I think at least for me, it was really helpful to think about these as individual modules. The circuits on these oscillators are based on the ones found in the Mini Moog Voyager. Here is a Eurorack module by HAH Synth, the Mini Mod. This oscillator is actually based on the same circuitry of the Moog Voyager. And there's a lot of similarities between this Eurorack module and these oscillators. As you can see, you can switch the octaves just like you can here. And just like a Eurorack module, you can take the waveforms out. Here, though, you have to switch between waveforms, whereas on this Eurorack module, you could pull out the different waveforms simultaneously. But there's also pulse width modulation, just like here. There's a rotary switch to choose the octave. The Mini Mod has a few more features with a hard and soft sync, but you can still think of these modules in the same way you would a Eurorack module in the context of playing with the Matriarch, or when it comes to us hooking this up to a greater Eurorack setup, which we're going to do later in the series. It just really helps to think of it that way. So oftentimes a common complaint that I hear about the Matriarch is that it's not polyphonic, but rather it's paraphonic. And I think it's because these oscillators are meant to function just like Eurorack modules. And if you start thinking about them that way and using them that way, then to me, it just makes it a little bit easier to understand kind of the purpose or where the Matriarch might fit in music. So anyways, a brief overview. You have a selector switch here that can choose the octave range that each oscillator plays in. Each of them can be independently tuned. In the back, there's a fine tuning knob that you can use for the main oscillator. I mean, it really tunes the entire instrument, but that's where you would tune your main oscillator. And then each of these frequency knobs can be used to tune these oscillators to the main oscillator. Finally, at the bottom, you have a selector switch where you can choose different waveforms between a triangle wave all the way up to a thin pulse wave. For now, I'm just going to set it to a triangle wave, all on the same octave, and have it in unison. I tuned these by ear and they were pretty good. You can still hear this sort of undulating of the different phases of the waveforms going. And that's one reason why having these independent oscillators is so great. But you can also tune them to not be in tune and maybe form a chord or something. Here I've set the main oscillator at C, the second oscillator at E, and the third oscillator at G. Finally, I'll tune the fourth oscillator up one octave to make a full C chord. And then, of course, you can change different waveforms to make it more interesting. Okay, I'm back to in tune, all in unison to C. Let's talk a little bit about the sync. So just a quick overview of what sync is. As I noted earlier, if you listen closely while I play a note with it not synced, you can kind of hear how the different waveforms are just slightly off from one another, even though they're playing at the same pitch. What sync does is it forces the oscillators to reset at the same time. First, you have to enable it, and then at this point, nothing is synced together. By pushing this button, oscillator 2 is synced to oscillator 1, oscillator 3 is synced to oscillator 2, and oscillator 4 is synced to oscillator 3. So now you'll hear the timbre of the sound will change, and that's because as the waveform is working to become synced with the one before it, it's a more complex waveform. So it's no longer just a saw wave, it's something like a super saw. But the pitch will stay locked in with the other one, so it'll stay perfectly in tune. You can start playing around with what these waveforms sound like by changing the frequency of the oscillator. Furthermore, and we're going to get more into this in the modulation section, but this is where the pitch amount comes in really handy, especially if you assign it to only the second and fourth oscillator. And then you can really change things up by changing waveforms. So as you can see, there's a huge sonic palette that you have available to you just within the oscillator's knobs. But there are also plenty of different ways we can patch things together. And of course, we're going to be talking about patching throughout this video series. I'm also including patch diagrams in a PDF on my Patreon page. So if you're interested in that, it's available to all Tier 2 members. And I've also got patch books up there for the Moog Sound Studio. One way you can patch this that sounds great is to take the waves out and use them as linear FM mods on the oscillators. Let's turn down these two oscillators and listen to what this patch point does. Let's do the same with the last two oscillators. And I'm going to apply a little bit of the filter. Let's change some of the octaves. And now we've got a pretty killer bass sound. We can overdrive the oscillators too by turning up the mixer. I'm going to add a little bit of delay. So turning up this frequency adds a little bit of growl to it. depending on what octave you're playing in, these can have really different effects. This is a bit of a cleaner sound. So I hope that helps you understand the oscillator section, gives you a few creative ideas. In the next section, I'm going to tackle the filter, and I'm going to explain the different filter modes, what all these knobs do, and we'll come up with some more patching ideas. I hope that if you keep watching this video series and pick up one or two things along the way, that by the end you'll have tons of different ideas of how to patch things together and how to create awesome sounds and have it be super expressive. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon page if you want to see patch diagrams, or if you just want to support me. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.